Hello guys and welcome to another video. My name's Mark, I'm an entrepreneur and property investor, and in today's video we're going to be going through the differences between limited company and personal name when it comes to buy-to-lets. I've done all the research and I've created a spreadsheet which during this video I'm going to give away free of charge to you. So stick around, but let's go and get into it because I know you want the information. So come on, let's go. And guys, welcome to the computer. So what we're going to do today is we're going to cut between the computer and me, and we're going to go through a little bit about how and why we might want to put our properties in a limited company. Now, first of all, what are we trying to achieve? Now, in 2015, the government brought out a summer finance bill. So that basically meant that you couldn't reclaim all of the mortgage interest as an expense. So if you were a 40% tax rate payer, as you can see on here, higher rates 40%, you could only claim 20% back. So let's say, for example, you had £10,000 worth of mortgage interest, you would need to pay 20% of that as tax. Now that obviously is very unattractive. That would mean that for a person who had a £10,000 or £850, £900 mortgage a month, they'd have to pay an extra £2,000 a year in tax. And as an additional tax rate payer, it's even higher. What a lot of people have started doing is putting their properties into limited companies called SPVs, special purpose vehicles. And the reason they're doing that is it completely circumnavigates that legislation. Furthermore, if you keep your money in the SPV, you're only going to pay corporation tax rather than personal tax, which, for example, if we go onto this page, we can see as a higher rate payer is 40%, an additional rate payer 45%. So much more attractive to only pay 19%, which is corporation tax, than both of those numbers. But that doesn't take into consideration the full scale of these changes, because there is much more to consider than just that. And because there's more to consider, I decided to create a spreadsheet yesterday, which would take all of that into consideration. So what we've done is we've created a spreadsheet, or I've created a spreadsheet, for you to analyse exactly what would be better for you, whether it be SPV or personal name. And there's a lot to take into consideration, so I'm going to talk you through the spreadsheet. So first of all, you can see on this example what would be better, and secondly, that you understand how to plug your figures in and make sure that you get the result that you want. So on this, we've got the orange bits, which are the bits that you edit, and we've got a combined property value of 500,000. We've got a mortgage of 375,000, and I put the two interest rates in at 2% and 3.5% respectively. And that is to identify the fact that there is a difference between getting a personal buy-to-let mortgage and a limited company buy-to-let mortgage. I've got the rent as the same as 35,000 for both, and that represents a 7% yield, which would be very, very good. And I understand that lots of different examples will be different, and plug your figures in, but I need a stable figure that I can just work from. And expenses I've put in as 10% for management, repairs, all that sort of stuff. Again, I understand yours might be different, just plug it in your figures. So what the sheet does is it then calculates exactly what the situation is, depending on whether you're a basic rate taxpayer, higher tax rate payer, SPV owner. It calculates all of that and gives us a comparison. So let's just take one or two of the examples on the left-hand side quickly. First of all, as a basic rate personal payer, your income would be 35,000. Expenses and interest would be 11,000, so your operating profit would be 24,000. Now, assuming that 24,000 doesn't take you above the threshold into higher rate, and there is some assumption there, the tax due would be £4,800, giving you a net profit of 19,200. If we look at the higher rate payer, the income, exactly the same, expenses and interest would be exactly the same, operating profit exactly the same. However, we have this additional interest tax charge, which is, if you see up here, is an additional 20% of the cost of the interest. So in this instance, the interest was going to be £7,500, and 20% of that would be £1,500. So that's the charge. And as such, our net profit reduces from 19,200 to 12,900, a significant reduction. So where do SPVs come in? Where does limited companies come in, I hear you say? So an SPV, just so you know, is a special purpose vehicle. It's what we call the limited company that we create to hold property. And what I've done on the right-hand side is given you the quick comparisons and the easy comparisons on this sheet. So an SPV would give you a net income of 14,844. And why is that? Let's have a look on the left-hand side and work it out. It's because the tax is so much less. The income is still 35,000, but our expenses and interests have increased significantly. The reason? We've got a loan rate which is higher, it's 3.5%, so we're paying more interest. The operating profit therefore comes down, but the tax rate is much lower, at only 19% for corporation tax. So with that reduced tax rate, our net profit comes in at £14,884. Now that becomes superior to pretty much everything apart from becoming a basic ratepayer. You're in a better position with an SPV, but that is not the end of the story with an SPV. You can't personally spend that money. That money isn't yours. That profit is the company's. In order for you to get that money, you either have to pay yourself a salary, or you have to take a director loan which must be repaid, or you can pay yourself a dividend. And the most tax efficient way of doing that is to pay yourself dividends. And as such, we've created an extra layer below which shows us exactly what happens when we pay ourselves as dividends. So for example, as a higher tax rate payer, you would earn 12,900 net if you're doing it in your personal name. As an SPV, you would earn 14,884, which is obviously significantly higher, but by the time you've paid yourself the dividend, you would only receive 10,697. You would be £2,203 better off keeping it in your personal name. As an additional tax rate payer, it reduces slightly, but ultimately you would still be £1,350 better off keeping it in your personal name. So why would anyone put it in a limited company, you say? Well, the reality is you're still better off in a limited company until the point that you pay yourself. So if you were, for example, trying to scale your property business and you were going to reinvest all those profits into growing the business, then you would be able to do so at the lower corporation tax level. You could also minus off other expenses. For example, I know people who've got electric company cars. At the moment, there's zero company car tax on electric vehicles. So they can buy it through their SPV or through their limited company, give it to themselves as a company car, write everything off against tax. There's lots of ways around it, and ultimately it's an infinitely flexible way of approaching the situation. But what I wanted to highlight was this additional interest that you're paying. For example, you're paying £5,625 additional interest per year on a £375,000 mortgage. And the bank is basically taking all the benefit you get by putting your properties in a limited company. So as I promised, this sheet will give you all the ins and outs. It takes into consideration the £2,000 dividend allowance you have. It takes into consideration the dividend rates, all that sort of stuff. And I'm going to put a link in the description for you to download a copy of the sheet if you want to. I hope you found it interesting. So I found it massively interesting doing this scenario because I thought it was cut and dry limited company. But when you look at the data, if you're going to be actually spending the money that you're making, it's probably better off in a personal name. If you're going to treat it as a business and look to scale it, reinvest the profits, all that sort of stuff, probably better off in a limited company, because that reduced tax means you can compound for longer and will mean that ultimately the pot will be so much bigger the tax won't matter. But what do you think? What's your consideration? Come back to me, I'd massively appreciate it. Anything you say in the comments, I will reply to. I'm massively keen for you to download this sheet and put your own figures in. So the link will be in the description, and I'll see you again on Friday for a vlog style video.